Welcome to part 8 of our Linkin Park Discography tour. Today we are going to dive into their 7th and final studio album with Chester Bennington, One More Light. As time has gone on, the fighting with the record labels and having to stand their ground in regards to what they want to do with their sound and pushing hard to get the green light for their records are a thing of the past. One More Light is a record where the band actually had the least amount of resistance in getting their record made. And because of this, they were able to make a record that they wanted to make, and it is completely different from anything that they have made before. And they released it to much criticism from both critics and fans alike. It's unfortunate because this record is excellent. During the release, they were accused of selling out, which is a claim that infuriated Chester, and he retorted many times in anger at that accusation. Now, my thoughts on that line up with a recent quote from Fat Mike of NoFX when he said, "Selling out is when you change your style to play music that you think people might like." Now, Linkin Park has always changed their sound and tried new things because they liked to do it. And if nobody else liked it, they didn't care. And that was actually one of the things that caused fights early on in their career with the record labels because everybody was trying to change them. So, no, they didn't sell out. They had been through this before and they did what they want. They changed things up as a way of trying to mature their recording style, and that was their choice for themselves, not for anybody else. Brad Delson pointed out that they had actually meshed all the genres that they had worked with in the past into this one record, creating an album that is devoid of a specific genre. They're still guitars, but the difference is they're not front and center. They are layered in and complement the music rather than dominate it. Now, this time around, they decided to do a recording style that Rick Rubin had actually recommended to them when he was producing the records, but when he had recommended it to them, they didn't want to do it. So they said, no, we're not going to do that. But this time around, they decided to do what he recommended, and that is focusing on the songwriting. Usually, they would have the vocals done last, but this record, they actually had them done first. And when they would write full songs at a time. Instead of taking a piece of a song here and a piece of a song there, they would go into the studio and they would bang out an entire song, and they would not leave until that song was finished being written. Another new piece to this album for the band was working with other writers. So they didn't exclusively write the album themselves. They had help from other writers to create what we have today as One More Light. Now, the sound of this album is very subtle. It meshes very well to create its own style, and there isn't anything that stands out so much that it needs to be pointed out. The beauty of this album is the lyrics and the different vocal style that we get from Chester. There's no screams, but heartfelt, clean singing that speaks to the soul. And with that, let's jump into the record itself. Starting off with Nobody Can Save Me, we have a simple song about facing our darkness, diving into the shadow and pulling yourself out because nobody else can do it for you. Then the song Good Goodbye, featuring Pusha T and Stormzy, is about the industry and people that just haven't been able to cut it. And in the song, Mike says you're going to have a lot to talk about on the bus on your way home. Basically, they didn't believe in the dream, they didn't believe in themselves, and so it's time for them to go because they just couldn't cut it because they weren't dedicated enough. The song Talking to Myself is about a person close to you who has been drifting away, and you try to warn them, but they won't listen, to the point that they're gone now and you're talking to yourself. Then we have Battle Symphony. This is a really cool song because it can metaphorically be used for any personal battle or struggle that you're going through. In essence, it's your battle symphony for whatever you decide. Then we move on to the song Invisible, which is a song of remorse over a broken relationship and being too afraid to say what should have been said. And it's a promise to make sure that that person can feel seen and not feel invisible. Feeling invisible is a very lonely place to be, and the remorse over making somebody feel that way is unbearable. The moral of the song: let your loved ones know how you feel. Don't let them feel invisible. Make it right before it's too late. You don't want to have that regret in your life. Then we have the song Heavy featuring Kiara, and this was actually the first single that the band used to introduce the album to fans and to give them a taste of what they were going to get from the record. And the reason they chose this song is they felt this perfectly embodied all the sounds that you find on the record. Not that all the other songs are going to sound like this song, but they felt that this best demonstrated what people were going to get from One More Light. I feel that this song is actually one of the most relatable songs on the record because we all have pain, we all have problems that we're going through, and we all have baggage that we carry. It all builds up and gets heavier and heavier, and if we don't learn to let go of that weight, or at least some of it, eventually it will crush us. Next up in the song, I'm Sorry for Now, we have Mike singing about being on a plane. He's just taken off, and he's thinking about a person that he left behind down below, and he's apologizing for leaving them behind and for not sticking around. But in the song, he claims it was necessary and that he didn't want to leave, but it needed to happen, and he feels that someday they'll understand the necessity with which he left. Hindsight is always 2020. In the song Halfway Right, Chester is singing about being warned to slow down. Multiple people are telling him to be careful, but in the song, he doesn't listen. Even after many warnings, he doesn't listen, and now he's screaming at himself because he now sees the light. And when you fight with yourself, you'll be halfway right every time. The question remains, which half is right? The shouting half or the half that should have listened in the first place? Sometimes we have people in our lives, whether a friend or a close loved one, that warn us over and over, and if we don't listen, you may end up alone screaming at yourself. Now, the song One More Light. This song is extremely important, beautiful, and painful for Linkin Park fans. It beautifully captures the heart of Chester Bennington, and in a way, this was his goodbye song to his fans. Now, we don't know where his head and his heart was when he wrote this song, but having dealt with a rough upbringing and depression throughout most of his life, he understood all too well the meaning of the words of this song. A song about having so many lives in the world that are as numerous as the stars, and he asks the question that many people have asked about themselves: who cares if one more light goes out? When there are that many stars, who's going to miss just one? And he answers that question. He cared. And we should too. Every person is important. Every person needs to feel loved. Each and every person is a light, and it's a tragedy when that light fades. Here on the channel, we recently had one of our own lights fade. A loyal subscriber and friend, a really sweet human being, passed away in July. Our friend Alan will greatly be missed. A moment is all we are. Value your loved ones and don't waste a day, because we don't know how long a person's light is going to stay lit. The final song, Sharp Edges, is a warning. The loved ones closest to us will keep an eye out and warn us so we don't have to accumulate scars. But some of us, unfortunately, will fall and have to learn the hard way because we didn't listen. We didn't heed the warning. So just like the song Halfway Right, we end up alone, filled with regret and scars from the consequences of not listening. Listen to your loved ones. It can save you a lot of pain and avoid a lot of regret. Overall, this was a beautiful album from Linkin Park. It did not deserve the hate that it got upon its release. Despite the hate, though, there were those that enjoyed the album to the point that it was certified gold and actually hit #1 on the Billboard Top 200. I personally feel that they could not have done a better job while choosing to change things up than they did with this album. Even though it's more of a calm and kind of easy listening record than their previous albums, the emotion and the feeling is still there, and Linkin Park still just seemed to get it. They know how to write for the soul, and this was a fitting final album for Chester to go out on, but also painful because 2 months after its release was when he would take his own life and give this new batch of songs a whole new meaning. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and the community grow, and we'd love to see you here through the week and to join us for the live streams on the weekend. So stay tuned and keep an eye out because we do announce when those are going to happen and what times, but they happen right here on the channel each weekend, usually on Friday. So we'd love to see you there. So don't forget to like, comment, hit that subscribe button. And then next time we're going to be finishing up the Linkin Park Discography Tour with some final thoughts and some history to the current date. We hope to see you here, and thank you for joining us.